Good evening. Welcome to the Melting Pot International Forum website. Today's online debate has a theme, Warrior for the Human Spirit. Our invitation accepted. Great woman, author, speaker, teacher, consultant, and noble leader, Margaret Wheatley. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Let me jump straight into adventure theme of today. I must admit that when I decided to listen to songline and Warrior for the Human Spirit, I expected some beautiful audiobook, beautiful guided, maybe some poetry and beautiful story full of wisdom, but it was beyond my imagination.
Yeah.
I mean, what I experienced, it was, and it is still, because I'm going through it, it's just so much more. And it took me very fast, very deep. And I had no idea that I will be entering such a mythological, emotional soul journey, and which will basically do a lot of changes, because it's not possible to go through it and not to be changed by it. And so it's very moving for me, and I'm so honored that I can actually communicate with you about songline. And when I was deciding, I mean, I had my headphones, I was in the shop and it was the chapter when I was deciding whether I am really willing to enter the songline. It was such a strong moment that it took me into different place. I literally felt as I would be standing in front of some sacred, ancient, little scary gate, maybe gate of decisions, and deciding whether to do the step or not. And oh my God, it was such that moment I felt, okay, this is serious. I had no idea that this was coming, but now it's really serious, like time for me. So I would like to just say a last sentence about this experience, which is still going on. Very soon I realized that I'm not listening any normal audiobook or beautiful story, but that I am like precisely guided, and it's initiation, basically, like true initiation. Okay, so please be so kind.
Everything you've just said, Teresa, is just music to my ears, because it was my intention to create an experience. But the reason I chose to do something with sound and music and a different kind of voice in me, a different style of writing, was because of the need for us to recognize that this time of unending chaos and confusion that is only increasing, that it's time for those of us who are daring enough, who are brave enough to step into this role of being a warrior for the human spirit. And that is the purpose of the songline. And let me just explain to anyone listening who has no idea what we're talking about.
That is exactly my question.
Songline. A songline is a form created in very, very ancient times by Australian Aboriginals. And it was their way of putting the knowledge that was needed for one's journey, physical journey, personal journey, spiritual journey, placing that knowledge in the land, so that if you're walking across the desert, and I have walked for 10 days, the most well-known songline, the Dreaming Sisters track, with one Aboriginal clan, the Pitjantjatjara people in the West Desert of Australia, many years ago now, 22 years ago now.
Mm.
And we would go to a certain place, and then there'd be a teaching there. There would be a footprint in the rock that was left by a deity. And they would explain to us what we needed to learn from that place, and then you travel on. And so I took that form. Nothing in it is from Aboriginal wisdom. It's my learnings of what it takes to be a warrior. And it's in my landscape, which is Utah, filled with red rock canyons and ancient petroglyphs. But the songline form means that we go on a journey, and it is mystical, and it does place some people when they hear the opening sounds, which are very mystical. These are all sounds created over many CDs by my dear friend, colleague, and partner in warrior training, Jerry Granelli, who is a very famous jazz musician, composer, drummer, very, very famous. But I went back through his collection of 25 CDs and found the music that fit the narrative that I was creating. And many people, when they first hear those opening passages, they do go into an altered state, which is very powerful. So it is a journey. You have to go slowly, but by the end of it, my intention, and I think it does serve this purpose well, is that you have learned what it takes to be a warrior and have a deepening commitment to continue training so that you can be the presence of insight and compassion as more and more people are suffering, more and more people are tightening up in fear and self-protection. So that's its purpose. It's the beginning. It is an initiation into what it means to be a warrior for the human spirit.
Please tell us more for viewers, for people who have no idea about this subject. I know that all your books are, a songline is about the subject, everything is about it, but how would you
there's something different. There's something different because I've written 9 books.
I know.
And
yeah.
So, in all of those books, I was wanting to change how we are as leaders and to be more engaging. Servant leadership is one way of explaining it. How to organize the way life organizes, how to seek the importance of relationships, of harmonious relationships.
Yes, I have these questions for later. But
okay, how to use self-organizing, which is life's way of bringing order out of chaos. And this songline is not that. It's not that. Things have changed to the intensity, to the importance that leaders have to make a choice.
Yes.
So my last book, now translated into Czech, thankfully, who do we choose to be? Who do we choose to be? We have to make a conscious choice, whether we just continue accepting what is and just making do and focused on our own protection or career or a more minimal contribution, or do we recognize that we have to face this reality? And this reality is very, very dark, and it's continuing to darken. We're facing enormous levels of suffering that will continue. Climate crisis is upon us. Politicians are all self-serving and just grasping whatever they can for their own benefit. More and more people are going hungry. More and more people are forced to migrate, to leave their homelands. Education systems are failing. There's increased militarism and prospect of war. And this is the pattern of human civilizations. What I'm describing is not new in history, but it's new to us. We feel this is what happened. Everything went wrong. We tried so hard to fix it, and many people are still trying so hard to fix it. We can talk more about this.
Yes,
but the need for leaders,
questions for later.
The need for leaders to make a conscious choice of who do they choose to be.
Yes.
And my answer to that choice was choose to be a warrior for the human spirit. Choose to step forward and be a defender, a champion, an advocate for people and for the planet. And choose your actions wisely, but you can no longer just be comfortable in your own skin, actually, is how I feel about it. You see what's happening. And of course, many of us still think we can fix it, which we cannot. We could talk about that more. But my work changed direction. Instead of working with a lot of leaders over a very long career at this point, asking them to change how they lead, using participation, high engagement, self-organizing, etc. No, I now realize that this time requires a few brave leaders and activists and citizens.
I have many questions about
forward.
many obstacles.
I will now let you ask your questions, but that's what this work is in terms of the whole arc of my work, which I published Leadership in the New Science in 1992. So we're talking about a long trajectory here.
It's such an amazing, vast subject. I'm so eager to ask so many details.
Okay.
Okay, but let me see. Maybe easy question. Do you believe that in anyone, do you believe that anyone can evoke in himself the qualities of warrior, even though that if we still live in our personal stories, in stories of ambitions, self-identities, and all those personal stuffs, is it still possible to step on the warrior journey and walk it? Or is it so radical journey?
You've defined the choice. The choice is it all about me and what I want to do, what I find meaningful, what I describe as my purpose, my ambition. Now, those things can be very noble. I want to create positive change. I want to save the environment. I want to create justice and equity in different places. Those are all very noble ambitions, but they're ambitions, and the ambition means that it starts with me. What will satisfy me, what I define as meaningful. And the warrior path is one of looking truthfully at what's going on, accepting how dark it is, and then asking not what do I need, but what does the situation need from me? And this is a question I put out to everyone now. The big conversion from me and what I need to what the world needs. And I don't mean the world generally, I mean the world in front of me. What is needed here, and am I the one to contribute to it? But in doing all of that, we stop being focused on ourselves. This is a huge, huge challenge in our culture, which has spent many decades now teaching us, encouraging us to focus on ourselves. And so we're standing up against that. And instead of asking, what do I need? We ask, what does the world need? What does this situation need? What does this person need from me? So this is a journey past one's ego, giving up one's ambition, but being very clear that my definition of a meaningful life now is that I have served well as best I could for what was needed from me moment to moment, week to week. So it's a spiritual path, because you're focused not on self-preservation. You're not focused on your survival. You're not ego motivated.
Does it really means? Does it mean really to give up our personal identity? Because this was still coming into my mind and heart. I was really asking myself this question, because if it's really contrary, or is it in a paradox, like to have identity and still being in service to whole at the same time? If we are losing the identity or the role we choose to play, then we can become very weak towards the world. I mean, in a term, I mean, I was thinking, is it possible to build up stable, really wise, chosen identity at the same time being in a service of life? Like,
yes.
Is it connected? Because it was still coming to my mind.
This is a deep and perceptive question. So we can consciously choose what role we want to play. And the warrior is a role. It's not an identity. And the reason I want to very clearly make this distinction is because our identities are something we create over time. They don't exist independent of our imagination and how we remember past experiences. And so we are multiple identities, all of us. But so there's a certain freedom in realizing that who I think I am is not the only choice, right? And in fact, it's self-created.
Yes, it is.
But when we talk about choosing to be a warrior, we are only choosing it as a role. So it's conscious choice that I'm going to learn how to play this role. It's an act, okay? But once we choose it, we do our very best to play it very well. And that's why it requires training. When I chose the word warrior, there was no other word for it, because warriors train, they stand apart, they are special in their dedication and their discipline. And when I choose to be a warrior for the human spirit, I know that that leads me into a lot of training so that I don't get in the way, so that my own ego needs or desires cloud my vision. Instead, I just want to see clearly what is needed here at this time.
It was again arising in me this question: if we didn't experience enough in our lives and our souls the qualities of warriors, as a compassion, deep love, maybe even the care, generosity, and I mean in deeper level, then can we really go through it as a warriors? Or first we should find it in our identity? I mean, first we have to personally experience those things so that we can develop it and give it to the world. Is that right?
No, I don't want to put that obstacle in the way.
No.
Because all of us have experiences with other people behaving generously.
Okay.
All of us have experiences of when we've realized somebody has paid attention to us and is acting to help us, whether it was a good teacher or someone in your family or someone, a friend. I mean, because these experiences of generosity and compassion and kindness are typical of human beings when we are not in survival mode. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to become really good in order to start serving. In fact, it works the other way. And I'm sure that everyone listening has had a personal experience where they have behaved generously when they saw something that needed doing, or they saw somebody in need, or they just related maybe to
I understand what you mean.
A dog on the street that was in trouble. We all have these examples in our own experience. It's not a problem. This is who people are when we transcend survival mode. And then we learn how to trust ourselves in more and more situations so that we can be generous, so that we can feel true compassion. But that does require mindfulness. It requires training. But we all have this. We're not manufacturing these qualities. We have them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a very clear answer. Yeah. What was worrying me is if the warrior can have personal dreams, personal fantasies, personal desires, or again, if it's where is the limit, or where is the border between personal?
You're looking for certainty here. You're looking for too much certainty. Like, I need to know that I'm still going to have me.
Exactly. That was
before I step into this
all the time.
This is very common. But what satisfies us, and this is a path. This is something we learn and experience over time. But as we become more and more focused on other people and what they need, and we develop our own qualities of calmness, being present, then there's no longer a question, because we notice that we feel better. I mean, I feel calmer. I can handle a lot of crises now quite easily because I don't let my mind go crazy with them. Now, long ago, I remember feeling, well, I'm going to have to sacrifice the things I like doing, or the things I think I need to be satisfied. But in fact, over time, I just realized this life, this way of being, is giving me a true sense of contentment and satisfaction and true contentment. I won't use the word happiness. That feels too trivial, actually. So these fears are normal at the beginning, but once you get into being available to other people, the satisfaction is unlike anything else we would have experienced. So you can start with that fear. It's normal, but just start to pay more and more attention to the people around you, what they need. Become less reactive from, well, no, I need this, or you just gradually find this is a much better way to be a fully human being.
I'm sorry for my beginner's questions.
No, they're normal. I love them, Tereza. They're important. They're important. So don't dismiss them.
Yeah, because I'm now like at the place of Desert of the Dead Dreams. So you can imagine, and I got stuck there. Really, I'm there. This chapter of Songline. And it's not easy place to be. And through the listening of Songline so far, I felt that the warrior journey is so much connected with feeling of a deep sadness and grief and frustrations as well. And going through it, like being able to stand it, face it, and be with it without changing it. And I wanted you to tell us like also the opposite dimension of it, what joy or miracle or what type of beautiful things can this journey bring to warrior?
Well, you are in the most difficult part of the songline journey, which is coming face to face with the tragedies in the world. But pretty soon, you will experience the joy of community in the songline, the joy of service, and how good it feels to be dedicated to serving other people. So you're in the facing reality phase of it. I want to say something about joy because it's so clear to me. Many years ago, I was doing a lot of work in post-disasters, natural disasters, and some terrorist-induced disasters, and especially with Katrina in New Orleans. And I would be interviewing people who had experienced great tragedy, great horror. Maybe they were in a boat with Katrina in New Orleans, with it so flooded for weeks, actually. They were transporting medicine, they were picking up people, they were rescuing people, they were dealing with dead bodies, and all, you know, the worst human tragedy possible. And yet they were serving in that situation with no thought of themselves. They were just, they'd come from thousands of miles away to help. And they would report to me, this was the most joyful experience of my life.
Wow.
And I was really puzzled by that for a while. And then I began to realize also through the teachings of some great spiritual teachers that joy is a result. It's a consequence of being truly together, of service, of not worrying about yourself. It's an experience of communion. And whenever human beings are so connected to somebody else or to a situation that they don't think about themselves, that's joyful. And so we do a lot in this culture, striving to become joyful or deciding I'm going to be joyful. That's not it. Decide to be of service. Decide to be of true helpfulness to someone else, and then you will experience joy.
And when the warrior became, I mean, when he will appear in really life-threatening, dangerous situation, or somebody is threatening his life, should the warrior protect his own life, his own limits, or he should be really, even in this situation?
This is too hypothetical. You know, we do see many examples of people rushing in to save other people at risk of their own lives. I want to ground this in a less extreme example. So right now, so many of us, especially people who were working to create positive change, and we're seeing all of our work just get destroyed, actually, or pushed aside. And we can still be in those offices with our colleagues. Well, right now we can't, but we're still working together, and we're still working on these projects to create positive change. And every day when we experience failure or no money, no resources to do it, or we see that all of our work on environmental destruction is not changing leaders' minds, and we're just quickly going into extreme environmental destruction. What is still possible when we see our work being just destroyed, actually, is to notice that if I'm in a really good conversation with you, or if you come to me and you're really upset and I just sit there and listen to you, and there's really a deep connection, that becomes a meaningful, satisfying day.
I understand.
This is so hard for us activists, and I include myself in this, where we had big dreams. We were doing big scale work. We expected that we would create positive change. And now we're discovering, and I'm saying it that no, the meaningful work for us right now is being present for one another, is consoling one another, is cheering one another up, laughing at the insanity of a situation, and knowing that we are together. That's meaningful work. Now, going from here down to here,
yes,
is a journey. It's a journey. It's so hard to give up our visions, our dreams, what we knew was possible but no longer is. So this is true warrior work, coming to terms with what's possible now in this world at this time. And it's much smaller, it's much more focused, it's filled with grief, sadness, rage, anger, and yet we can still be together, and we can still help one another through for whatever is coming.
I feel that for coming back to our hearts, to our souls, it really needs the skill to feel, to listen, and probably kind of training, or maybe we forgot how to do such a natural thing.
Right.
Could you say little words about training of mind? I mean, meditation, or what can we really do in our basic reality, with our busyness and fear and all the time, like, you know, the flow.
We have to take charge of our minds. We have to realize that fear is either our projection of what might happen, but it hasn't happened, or fear comes from our bringing the past forward and saying, well, I don't want to have that feeling again, or I don't want to go through that again. The present moment never has fear in it. The present moment just has possibility, but we have to train our minds so that we don't get carried off into these, what are fantasies, really, projecting into a future that does not yet exist of what might happen. It's terrifying what might happen. The future is quite fearsome, but we don't have to be in fear to be active and available and helpful. So meditation is a core skill for warriors. And it's not meditation where I get lost in a fantasy world, or am working with my body systems like the chakras, or doing a guided meditation. No, the meditation that is so important is being able to watch your mind, see how you work. When a thought appears, you notice it, but you try not to follow it. And then you do follow it because we're undisciplined. And then you bring your attention back from where that thought was taking you. You bring it back to your breath is the easiest, but you can use any object to keep returning to. And once you learn to control, to actually be the boss of your mind, that gives you the ability, when you're in a meeting, when you're in a difficult conversation, you notice how you're suddenly reacting because you're watching yourself as well as being very present. And that gives you the possibility of not reacting, but just pausing and choosing a different way to respond. So this is only possible with hours and hours and days and weeks and months of meditation as a daily practice. But the second practice that is so important is what we call direct perception. How much do you actually see when you go into a room, when you're with somebody? Do we just see them as normal to just see each other through our judgments and perceptions? Like we immediately make a judgment. Oh, I understand who you are because of the way you're dressed or the way you look, or and how do we just be present to all the information that's available Well, again, this takes training to cut off our judgment and open our perceptual senses. And so we train in both of those core areas, but it's making us more awake for wherever we are, more aware of how I work. So I know which situations trigger me, and then I can go into those situations and not get as triggered. Anyway, this is why it requires training and a disciplined approach. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep meditating. You have to develop a more stable mind and greater levels of perceptual awareness. There's no substitute for those.
I loved the way it was described in songline, like the basic principles of meditation, of awareness, of and also, I mean, I know these things, but again, when I heard it again being said this particular way, I felt really relief that meditation is a skill, or it's like a muscle. It can be trained. It must be trained.
Exactly.
Nobody has it at the beginning. That all mind is wild, and I felt okay. I'm not crazy. This is what the mind does.
That's right. I mean, so many people try meditation and say, well, I can't do it because my mind, I can't stop thoughts. That's not the purpose of meditation. Everyone cannot stop thoughts, because that's what mind's job is. The heart pumps blood, the mind produces thoughts, but you learn to watch them and not get engaged in them. And then gradually that does lead to a level of deep centeredness and peace. But still the thoughts are going on. You just don't respond to them.
So the warrior journey basically is offering, as I see it from my own eyes or heart, what to say, it's giving possibilities of great freedom and connection, actually, with
that's right,
inner and outside world through the service. Yeah,
that's absolutely right.
Very tempting. Like if somebody would told me, look, give up everything, but I offer you vast freedom here and connection with all that exists. I mean, I would be foolish to say, no, I don't want it. I want other, like my fears, my ego.
It's so good that you see this. And the thing is, you just have to start. Like, if you decide you're going to train your physical body for a certain level of capacity, or you want to look a certain way, you just start. And so this is, I can promise these results.
It's wonderful.
But you just have to start, and also realize that everyone on the warrior path feels they're not good enough, feels that they're an imposter, feels that, no, I'm just an inferior person and I can't do this. That's normal. Imposter is actually labeled as an imposter syndrome. We all feel we're faking it. Just relax with that. And that is something that you can use your mind to just say, well, I'm not going to follow that. I'm not going to give that any more power than it already has. We all feel like we're faking it, and it's not a problem. It really isn't. We just keep going with the training. And this training is just like physical training or training a talent. If you're a dancer or a musician or an artist, you have to just keep doing it over and over again. And you go through upsets, you go through downturns, you just keep going.
Wow, it's amazing and truthful subject. I would like to open shortly the theme of leadership, at least little, because I'm also reading the book you were speaking about, which was translating into Czech language. Probably this is the spirit of the world, the way it is now, that leaders are not trustable. It's very hard to find archetype of leaders we can trust. For me, especially in Czech Republic, our government and leadership.
I'm from America, so we share this.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Again, the question which was arising in me was, how can we build up healthy inner authority, healthy inner leadership, when it's so hard to find trustable outside leader? Or because when I was asking myself these questions, where the book was leading me, I'm not sure it was its songline or the book you were speaking about, but I really could not find. Maybe my mind was too much stressed that moment, or I was creating different stories.
I think
could not find any archetype to follow, really.
There are examples. Forget about the archetype. There are very noble warrior leaders. I would say that Angela Merkel is one of them right now. Certainly Mandela was one. Many people, because I worked so much in South Africa, I'm aware of many people who were valiant warriors and leaders. But there's another way of discovering the qualities that we then want to take responsibility for in ourselves. And that is just think of someone in your own experience. You can go back to childhood if needed, who you really respected as a role model, as a leader, someone you were willing to follow, someone you were happy to work with. And I ask two questions. I've asked this question tens of thousands of people by now all over the world. How did you feel in the presence of that person? And what was their behavior? How did they treat you? And it's always about feeling trusted, stretched, challenged, very visible, where the leader was paying great attention to me rather than I had to serve the leader's ego. And the leader is trustworthy. I know where the leader stood. I knew what they stood for, what their values were, and they were not hypocritical. They really had integrity. This description of a leader, a good leader, is in our experience. What we're seeing right now is the historical place of a civilization in collapse, in its final stages, where there is no leadership. It's all about the elites taking everything for themselves. It's these power grabs. It's this indifference or outright conscious denial of what's happening to people and planet. This historically always happens. And then it's within that context of no leadership, complete corruption, self-serving qualities where leaders really are just there for themselves and what they can grab and take. There's always intense internal conflict at the end of a civilization, and people are so busy fighting each other for grabbing what they can that they don't perceive the real enemy who's about to take over. In this case, for me, it's so clearly climate. We can pretend that we can make it on our own, and yet we've basically run out of time for the levels of cooperation and collaboration that are necessary to do anything possible to stop climate crisis now. So this is always at this time, at this stage in history, and I'm speaking about every human civilization without exception, that's when the warriors step forward. We're not needed in times of peace or plenty. We're needed now when there is no leadership, when people are being retreating and being pushed back into fear so they will submit to autocrats.
Yes.
When people are in survival mode, well, as warriors, we know that everyone is capable of being a good human being and being generous and caring, but it's not the reality now. So we serve as the protectors and defenders of the best qualities in people. But this is just so predictable. I think it's so important to notice where we are in the patterns of history so we don't keep fighting for the wrong things. However, we do need to keep giving voice. We do need to protest, to express our outrage, to offer different alternatives, but we don't do it with anger. We do it with real clarity that this needs to be done. We need to give voice. We need to be honorable people and express our values. But truly, I mean, one of the things that my book, Who Do We Choose to Be, does is it really outlines the pattern of history. So there's nothing unusual going on now. There's nothing unusual, but we need to get smart about noticing where we are so we can step forward and make the difference that is possible now, which is being there for people and defending the spirit of life and the human spirit.
I am so much touched.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say more. I mean,
well, we're going to have to bring this to a close.
Exactly.
So
you're right, but this should be like on and on continuing these works.
Well, it is. And I think I want to let everyone know how much I value and rely on the teachings from Václav Havel.
Oh.
And so his work on hope is something I broadcast around the world. And the ultimate quote that I used from him, it was when he said, "What is hope?" And he said, "Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but hope is the certainty that something is worth doing no matter how it turns out." And I use that as my mantra. What is worth doing no matter whether it creates a positive result or not? What is the work that is worth doing now?
Wow.
So that's a good way to end, I believe.
It is. Margaret, I'm so honored I could have this conversation with you, and it was mind-opening and heart-opening. Thank you so much.
You're so very welcome. It's been a great delight to feel into the depth of your questions. And I would say just relax.
Okay.
Keep going with the song line. Develop a good meditation practice. And for everyone, there are many ways to to journey in the song line. And all of that information is up on my website, margaretwheatley.com.
Thank you so much to you, Margaret. And thank you to all the viewers who were watching with us and maybe who will want to undergo their own journey.
Yes,
so,
I hope so.
Be well, and I wish you all good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.